I love the ocean. I'm gonna tell you, I love the ocean. I live in Utah. What? Bus brought me here. I love Utah. But for some reason, East Coast, I love the ocean and I miss it all the time. And probably like a lot of you, if you've gone to the ocean and stuff, and when I was a kid, we used to bring clams home without telling our parents, and the clams were still in them, and that made an awkward moment. You know, the station wagon smelled for a little bit. But anyway, the point being is a lot of us bring sand home and stuff, and it just ends up in a drawer someplace. You know, I always, for some reason, put it in a sock and then wrap a plastic bag around it. Well, we found a bunch of these in our drawers and stuff, and I said, you know, we should do something with that. Something that reminds us of the ocean. And so I thought, well, why not? Because we didn't just get sand. You get all the bits and pieces that come with the sand. And I think that's what's cool. Okay, so to give you an example, let's run down some of the collection that I have, okay? So over here, this is some of the stuff I notice, and that's just because I'm crazy. Notice the little crab shell down in here, and notice the seaweed through here. On the back of that shell right there, there's a barnacle. There's a pine cone here. There's a piece of sea glass back over here. That's a chunk of shell. That's a shell. That's a rock. Now I keep these next to my computer, and the reason I do is, I don't know. The weird thing is, though, is that, you ever do this to the Christmas tree? You ever take some of the Christmas tree? No, I'm a nut, aren't I? Take a Christmas tree, some of the branches and stuff, and the needles, and you put them in a jar. And when you want to smell the pine trees in the middle of winter or something, or in the summer, you can just, and this smells like the ocean, which is amazing. And each jar smells different depending on where it came from, which I think is pretty cool. Now, one of the reasons that it caught my interest, and it caught everybody else's interest too, is because it's sitting on a shelf next to my computer. So when I'm sitting there and I'm thinking and stuff like that, it's like, you can change them. You can change the landscape of each one. And this is why I suggest that you not put too much sand in them, because all those little bits, and you do it oh so gently, but all those little bits are just in there, and they will float on top of the sand, and they will give you a new landscape every time you move them. And it will be completely random, and next thing you know, you have a new scene anytime you want. Now, I know that sounds simple if you don't love the ocean, but we've taken other vacations. We've been to Wisconsin. I choose the ocean. Sorry, Wisconsin. Love your cheese. All right, this jar has a story to tell. There's also other ones. There's a jar from Miami Beach when Erin and I went there. It was midnight. We were crazy young people, and we trotted off into the water, embracing each other up to our necks. I told Erin how much I loved her. The first things that came across her lips were the words, "Na na, da na, dun 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 dun." Mood breaker, out of the water. So this is a little bit different. This is the jar that reminds me of my dad 7 years ago, 8 years ago. He passed away. And when he did, the decision was made to cremate him. And so what we did is we did that. We got the container, and we decided that they wanted to do something special, my mom and him. They'd made this decision. So in Ipswich, Massachusetts, in the earlier part of November, we all appeared along with their friends. The weather was so bizarre. It was just after a nor'easter, and for some reason, against the coast of New England, it was almost 70 degrees. We don't know why. The nor'easter kicked up so much stuff on the beach. If you see these big shells, they are attached like angel wings. They were everywhere. Now, we grew up on Cranes Beach. My parents met there. My mom made the sandwiches that they had on their first date. The nephews and nieces, we all showed up. We brought shovels because making sand castles was the thing to do before the Xbox. And we went and we started to build. We timed it for the low tide, and we timed it so that we could build this gigantic sand castle. About 3/4 of the way up, I took over and I put my dad's ashes in the sandcastle. There was so much seaweed, so many shells, so many feathers. As a matter of fact, this feather represents right as we were done and we were backing away from the tide that was coming up and starting to lap at the bottom of the castle. A seagull came up and landed on top and just started laughing. You know how they throw their head back, and I was like, we were all cracking up. And the tide came in and just slowly swept across until the castle was gone. So that is all contained in one little jar. I'm not sure what to call them, but all I know is that they are something that I can look at and something I can turn and make into something different anytime I want.